I used to have nothing. Then I got this job, this family. I've been known by many things: spy, assassin, and avenger. I've lived a lot of lives. But you know what? I am done running from my delays. Happy Friday, YouTubers and Instagrammers. Welcome to today's episode on Sterling on Cinemas. That's Cinemas with an S. And today I'll be giving you my review on Black Widow since officially Phase 4 has started. Post Disney Plus shows with the movies. This is the first MCU film we have gotten in 2 years. And if you recall, I did the entire Infinity Saga 2019 or in 2020, hoping that Black Widow was going to come out then. It did it, but now we are here and Black Widow is officially out. And now I get to give you my official thoughts. So this isn't really on any occasional playlist, but I'll just be building up. I'll just be continuing to keep up with the MCU films going forward since I already have all the other MCU reviews behind me, and I'll just keep adding more on. Obviously, this is going to be a different type of playlist. This is going to be the Infinity Saga. This is going to be the supposed multiverse saga. So that's where it looks like Marvel Studios is going with the next era of their movies. But anyway, before I begin, if you are new to this channel, don't forget to follow me on Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, like on both ends, comment on both ends, whatever good or bad you have to say about Black Widow, because I know we all did not feel the same way about this movie, but I'll talk about it. And most importantly, watch it from beginning to end. Marvel Studios' Black Widow, the first film in Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, takes place in between, like I said before, Captain America's Civil War and Avengers Infinity War after her act of treason towards Prince T'Challa at the time, after she signed the Sokovia Accords, meaning that she had to follow and be in compliance with what the document said. But due to her actions against what the Accord said, what she written, she is being pursued by General Ross. But now Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, confronts the darker parts of her red ledger from the first Avengers film when a dangerous conspiracy with ties to her past arises. Pursued by a force that will stop at nothing to bring her down, Natasha must deal with her history as a spy and the broken relationships left in her wake long before she became an Avenger. So listen, I was not the only person I know I wasn't the only person. We were all excited at Hall H at Comic-Con 2019 when Kevin Feige officially announced the whole Phase 4 slate, the whole next slew of movies in the fourth phase of the MCU. But when Black Widow was first announced in Marvel Studios' Phase 4 slate at Hall H at Comic-Con 2019, I was excited to see how the loose ends of Natasha Romanoff's story would get tied up. Like, after all those mentions of Budapest throughout Avengers 1 and Avengers Endgame, and hints to her past throughout the Winter Soldier and her other appearances, unfortunately, they do get tied up and explained well, but the timing of this happening was much too late. Black Widow is the first MCU film in 2 years. Thank God, this is the first time happening. This is the first time this has happened since 2009, where we had no MCU movie. But I thought that this was going to make an epic comeback, like, to the theaters. But in my opinion, it turns out that was not the case. Marvel may have been killing it with the Disney Plus shows. I know that if you're watching this review, you have been watching all 3 Disney Plus shows: WandaVision, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Loki. I'm sure you liked all 3 of them, but be honest, you like one of them more than the other. For me personally, as a show in general, I love The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But the best Marvel show right now is WandaVision. I love WandaVision. I love the whole sitcom shenanigans, the cryptic build up, and just the way it ends. I like that, and the way it sets up Multiverse of Madness. And then Loki just ended like a couple weeks ago, and now we're about to enter into What If. So it's a good time to be a fan. It might be the end of an era with the end game, but that is not the end of a lifetime as a fan. Anyway, so they've been killing it with these Disney Plus shows since WandaVision and breaking streaming records. Like, every debut has been always outbeating the previous show, but the anticipation levels for the movie still remain. Like, we get these, Marvel gets these different opportunities to go to different avenues that they couldn't before with Disney Plus, but that doesn't mean our hype for the movies would change. Sadly, the anticipation level for an MCU film can potentially be rewarded by how great it turns out to be, or it can be ruined by how the actual film is inferior to the marketing of the movie, meaning the marketing of the movie got you more hyped than the movie itself. The whole fan base can't say, again, the whole fan base, we, us, cannot say that there is a 100% bad MCU movie, but movies like Thor the Dark World, Captain Marvel, does not diminish the hot winning streak and how resonating the MCU has become with the world. However, Black Widow serves as a reminder for me that an ever-expanding tree like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's so big, y'all. It's just a juggernaut. Will still have some weak branches. You know, every healthy tree is going to have a weak branch. Since I've been giving blatant statements implying that I did not thoroughly enjoy Black Widow, I'm going to briefly and professionally explain why. I will start off by saying what I like, and what I like is the only thing we wanted to know about Romanoff. The whole Red Room plotline, what has mysterious vibes that outweigh the tragedy behind it. Like it should have been as mysterious as it was tragic, like it's been described in the past in Avengers 1. I'm not saying that the story behind how they recruit the different Black Widows is not sad, but the emotion feels lightweight compared to the subsequent times it was mentioned. I love the relationship between Natasha and her surrogate Russian family, even if the chemistry does not feel as tight as the Guardians of the Galaxy or the Avengers team during that time. The action that we got felt so low quality and too brief and felt so scarce at times. It feels like this is the first time Marvel Studios shows us every action piece of a movie, which heavily affects the experience when you go see it. Like when Endgame was getting promoted, they only showed like probably under 20% of the whole movie. I don't know. But in translation, the action sequences we got felt so shortened and rushed only to make room for more of what we wanted to know. Which is great, but also we could use more action. It is Marvel after all. This layout makes the quality of Black Widow as a whole fluctuate. The action felt downgraded, the comedy felt very present, and the drama and emotion took charge to emphasize the scars of Natalia's upbringing. It was a respectful decision to include more Red Room related plot details into the script, but we could have had some better physical action. Like I know as a Marvel fan, I love the big CGI stuff just as much as the physical action. The physical action can be more inventive, but the CGI can run wild. You can do whatever you want with the CGI, which is why I love the action and the Winter Soldier. Some of the best hand-to-hand combat, you know what I'm saying, in the whole MCU or in cinema in general, and also Civil War is no exception. But we could have had some better physical action to at least come close to the Winter Soldier. As being part of the MCU for 11 years, and having an inevitable amount of delays, Black Widow is inevitable. But Black Widow is finally given the backstory that they have been teasing since the very first Avengers movie. Natasha Romanoff has certainly had her golden moments throughout the MCU. And it's sad that we won't be able to see her again. But just watching this movie will kind of make you miss her death even more in Endgame. Because like, I'll be honest, I didn't mention this in my Endgame review way back when, but when Natasha Romanoff died on Vormir, I didn't feel as sad about that as I did with Gamora's death, because Gamora's death was kind of forced at hand, and Natalia's death was a willing choice that she made for herself. So that kind of took away any emotional weight behind it for me. But I would say that her best fighting still comes from Iron Man 2 and the Avengers. Like her best acrobatic fighting and her best inventiveness in her skills. It was enough to make a whole story arc for the character during the Infinity Saga, but Marvel was still gracious enough to still give Natasha Romanoff a solo act. Of course, we do not talk about Black Widow movie without getting into her surrogate family. At least Marvel did not just place the story in between Civil War and Infinity War and see her with the family without any explanation. No, that's not how Marvel does that stuff. I must hand it to the director Kate Shortland for making sure that there is some real history behind Natasha, Yelena Belova, Melina, and Alexei Shostakov, because flashbacks help make sense of everything. Florence Pugh's take on Yelena Belova is easily one of the strengths of the movie, with her chemistry with co-star Scarlett Johansson, my crush. Also, just what she brings to the table as Yelena is incredible and is a comedic and sarcastic force to be reckoned with that even Rocket wouldn't be able to put up with. Rocket Raccoon. Melina is like the mother figure of the group and is where Natasha gets most of the determination from. And you really see that. I didn't feel as magnetized as Rachel Weisz's Melina Vestikov, but she brought a few factors that were only meant to keep the story going forward. Alexei Shostakov, aka the Red Guardian, is probably the best thing about this movie next to Yelena Belova, as far as where most of that usual MCU charm comes from. And probably the one hint we got to a mutant in that prison. I'm not sure. I wasn't able to identify with this mutant, but Marvel Studios or somebody said, or IMDb says that this character that was in a prison scene with Alexei Shostakov was indeed a mutant, but I'm not sure who it was. And his connection, his supposed connection with Steve Rogers, like he really fought Captain America, the former Captain America. And now we get to Taskmaster. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry they couldn't give us this Taskmaster that we were so seeking. The biggest disappointment in the movie, and he was my most anticipated thing about Black Widow. Like, I love Taskmaster in the comics. Taskmaster's alias is Tony Masters, and he has the power of photographic reflexes, which helps him to become one of the most formidable Earth villains in the Marvel Universe, and helps him to mimic the people who he is fighting. My problem with Taskmaster here is that it was not true to the comics aside from the mimicry abilities that we see. Now, I'm not hating on how they developed this portrayal of Taskmaster into a puppet machine, into like a Terminator type, but how the Taskmaster identity backfires on us twice. Once, because while we know that Taskmaster is an actual being in the comics, the MCU presents it as a mindless Terminator that analyzes and uploads fighting techniques into the mainframe of its CPU, which is alright by MCU standards. I mean, you wouldn't see an MCU character having calculations in his thought bubbles and then bring him to light and then start fighting. No. Second, because nobody expected anyone to be under that helmet because Taskmaster has zero dialogue. But we later learned that Marvel does a gender swap for a second time. Third, if you include the Falcon and the Winter Soldier with Karli Morgenthau, who in the comics, the Flag Smasher is an individual and his name is Karl Morgenthau. But in the MCU, it's a whole organization led by a little girl with a serum named Karli Morgenthau. If you ever watched the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, go watch it. It's just a great drama, period. The fight choreography with Taskmaster, using the skills of other Avengers and MCU heroes is simply awesome. But again, it had a shortage. Rotten Tomatoes currently has, if I'm not wrong, gives Black Widow an 80% score. Now, I'm not sure if I liked Black Widow, and it is hard to say that I dislike it. The chronological placement of this MCU flick was sensible, but the late timing and displacement of Black Widow is what became the heavy turnoff afterwards. Even on the contrary, Black Widow takes what we all love about a Marvel movie and seems to take the quality all over the place in order to make more time for filling up holes in the titular spy's life. It's like the more this movie got delayed, the less I became interested in it. So the amount of delays it has a lot to do with why I feel the way I feel about the movie. But either way it goes, I'll give it a C-, 7.2 SLs out of 10, a little bit better than Thor: The Dark World. But that's what I want to mention. There's going to come a time, I'll keep doing reviews on MCU movies going forward. Like Shang-Chi is coming out finally, and then Eternals is coming out, and Spider-Man, it better not get delayed. We will get a trailer soon. I know we will get a trailer. But there's going to come a time where I will do a re-review on the whole Infinity Saga. But when I do it again, I'm going to do it in style like a certified YouTube movie critic. But anyway, y'all have a great Friday, and I'll see you guys next week for my next slew of videos. Peace.